my title of the talk, I titled it A Mestiza Quest to Find Her Place in Academia and in STEM in the Face of Adversity. And I think many of the people here, the lecturers, the speakers, could relate to this, what it means to really live in two worlds, right? And always have to try to find yourself. So I've been a mestiza all my life, right? A woman at the crossroads between race, nations, languages, cultures, social classes, with multiple identities and contradictions at the same time. You know, my ancestor is Indigenous and Spanish and everything in between. I'm really a blend, right? I identify myself as a proud Mexican American, yet I'm not fully accepted by neither country or group of people, because I don't fit the mold of a Mexican. I don't fit the mold of an American. I'm my own blend, right? And I also think of myself as a passionate mathematical biologist, you know, a person that sits at the intersection of biology and mathematics and trying to solve questions in biology using mathematics. And sometimes when we're trying to do that, we find a very interesting mathematics that allows us to even dive deeper. Yet, I'm not embraced by both areas fully, right? Because I might not be considered a true mathematician, and I'm not considered a true biologist, right? So for some people, they might say I'm a wannabe or an imposter. So I guess I have been a wannabe, but I am who I am, right? And one of the things is that when you sit at the intersection of different things, right, and you know you're both, and you know you're neither. So I don't blame them for not accepting me, because I'm neither a fully mathematician nor a fully biologist, right? I'm a blend. So, but at the same time, this is who I am, but I do bring different insights. And I'm constantly fighting against the separation of both physical and imaginary borders that have been imposed on me, right? And sometimes I'm torn between the different ways, the different traditions, because I don't want to go in that direction. You know, I want to create my own path. And that is very, very difficult to be able to do that sometimes, right? Even within my family, many times they don't understand why I do certain things, right? And because I am different, because I sit in multiple spaces. And I'm constantly trying to redefine myself. I really find myself in who am I, so that I could freely and boldly and unapologetic be myself. Not want to change to be someone that is accepted. Even if I'm not accepted, I want to be who I am and be proud of who I am. For many times I wanted to change, I wanted to be different, and it took 5 decades, right, 5 decades to stand here and say, I am happy with who I am and I am not going to change, right? I am not going to feel uncomfortable anymore. If you feel uncomfortable, well, I'm sorry, but I am who I am, right? And it's and I want you to remember that, because there's going to be many times in your path that you're going to want to change to fit in, right? And you don't really have to fit in. You just have to kind of fit in and be able to create your own path, right? And so my journey has not been easy, but it has been an incredibly transformative journey. And I am grateful for all the good things as well as all the bad things, right? I mean, I met incredible individuals, you know, superstars, and I have had the opportunity to even have dinner with them or lunch. I've been in so many places. Work has taken me to a lot of places, and not just visiting, but also be able to live there, right? And I also have been able to discover certain talents that I didn't know I had, right? Because I never dared to try them, but now I've been able to. And I've been blessed with a wonderful family that has been very supportive, even though many times they don't understand. My son just 2 days ago, right, because I was crying over something that I was having a challenge at the lab. He said, Mom, why do you do this to yourself? You know, it's like things are so hard, but you continue to go in that direction. I mean, you're already a full professor. Just be happy. Just go and teach class and be happy. And then I asked him, Abdi, you say you want to be a lawyer and a mathematician. You want to go to one of the top schools, right? And you know if you knew you had the opportunity, will you just give up? The answer is no. I mean, challenges are hard, but that doesn't mean you give up, right? Because at the end, you want to be able to say, I tried it. I failed, but I tried, as opposed to I never tried. So many times people ask me, how did I get to go to Wellesley College, Cornell University, Los Alamos National Lab for a postdoc, Loyola Marymount for a tenure track position, later on to Arizona State University for a tenure position and become full professor, go become a MIT Martin Luther King Jr. visiting professor, and then go to the National Science Foundation and be a program officer, also go and become a Fulbright at the Vision Institute of Paris, and now be a UTSA standing between two fields, mathematics and neuroscience, and have a wet lab and also be a traditional mathematician at the same time, right? Well, there's many factors that contribute to this, but the underlying factor has been education. Education, as John Dewey said, education is not preparation for life, but it's life itself, right? And having the ganas, the desire to achieve something and working hard at achieving it and not giving up, right? My journey in academia and life has been a story of adversity, resilience, tenacity, hard work, and continued transformation. Because I realize that every place I go, everything I try, whether I fail or succeed, at the end of it, I'm a different person and I'm a better person for it, right? So I've been blessed with that. But all these character traits have led to many dreams come true. I am a firm believer that if you dream something and you work hard at it, you will get it. It might not come at the time point that you wanted it. It might not come in the form that you wanted it, but it'll come. And through my story, I hope that you'll see that. For example, I had a dream to go to top schools, right? When I realized that I could do that, and it happened. I had a dream that I was gonna lead my own summer program because that transformed my life, and I was gonna help transform lives of other students. I was able to do that. I remember being invited to give a keynote for the PACEMANs, the Presidential Awards for Excellence in STEM, Mathematics, Engineering, Mentoring. And I remember being there at the White House to give that keynote, and I thought to myself, wow, I wish I could be one of those people going to meet the president. Well, I didn't get to meet the president. I actually was glad because of the time that my award was given. But I got to be at the White House visiting as an awardee, right? Something that I never even thought. Fulbright, when I first heard of it, I said, what an incredible opportunity. I wish I could have done that, but I'm kind of old now and there's not an opportunity. Well, I looked into it, there is. You go as a researcher, right? And I wanted to do it in a different field. I thought and it was a stretch. And I remember many people say they're not gonna give it to you and you're going to one of the most competitive places, which is Paris. I got it. But the reason why I'm saying this is because I'm about to tell you also that flip. This seems like, everything's going well. No, there's times when it's been really hard, right? And one of the dreams that I always had, but I never told anyone because it was so crazy, it was so out there, right? To actually have a lab, an actual wet lab with a computational lab where they talk to each other, where I could run and do experiments that would guide the models that I'm creating, the mathematical models. And then the mathematical models give certain results that I could go back and test something, right? That I didn't have to wait for 2 years for my collaborator to allow me to use his data. Or that I just had to respond to the question that he had asked. In other ways, he asked the question, he has the data, and I model it, as opposed to I create the question, I generate the question, right? So, for example, I study photoreceptor degeneration. Photoreceptors are in your eyes, and they're the ones that are responsible for light vision and being able to absorb photons and be able to see by transmitting signals to the brain through the left optic nerve. And one of the big questions in developed countries is what keeps photoreceptors alive? Because we haven't been able to solve that one, right? In developing countries, is other things like cataracts, other things that are actually could be solved. There's a solution, but there is not an economic support to be able to address those issues in developing countries and underdeveloped countries. But in developed countries, it's really photoreceptor degeneration. And now with a wet lab, I could actually go and see how photoreceptors are degenerating. And we look at that by looking at the thickness of the outer nuclear layer, which I don't know if you could see it, but it's in here, right? And we're able to then expose them to different light intensities, which is we're getting ready to conduct that experiment and see how under different light intensities, they actually end up becoming thinner, which means they're degenerating. They're dying, right? We also can look at different metabolites and enzymes that are causing certain photoreceptors to grow, right? And we could actually look where they're localized and then be able to have that data so that we are able to create better equations that actually are dependent on those things. So sometimes we create models about treatment, right, in applied mathematics. And we look at the data that has been given, but we don't, and we take the treatment that was published. But now we could actually go and create those treatments. So in the lab, we're going to start to look at adeno-associated virus, which is a vector, and inject a gene that would overexpress, and that would hopefully slow down the degeneration of photoreceptors. And we actually inject them on mice, and we do labeling to be able to see that actually the injection spread in the region that we wanted it to be spreading. And then we actually go and dissect the eyes, and to be able to then look at what is the actual layers that have been affected, the thickness of the layers, right? And we do that to what is called immunohistochemistry, right? So that's what would be the opportunity of having a lab, right? Being able to measure different things, measure the response to light, measure electroretinographic with a machine that I just bought, that we're going to be able to do that, right? And then create then go back and use the models to refine them, to make them better, but also have the models inform us, right? And if we want to look at actually the molecular level, like really what's happened inside the cell, being able to do that through metabolic analysis, right? Which is also, with all these techniques, all these things, we are able to now do it in the wet lab. So my students will get trained both as mathematicians, or computational individuals that are and also being able to go to the bench and do the work. And that has been a dream come true, right? I gotta tell you that I was really terrified by mice, right? And my kids thought, Mom, how are you gonna go and euthanize mice when you're gonna be so scared? And I was. But I told myself, this is for science. This is for the sake of science. And they're cute little things. And now actually I'm okay. I'm okay grabbing them. I'm okay doing certain things. And I tell my students, when they say, oh, but they're so cute, we're gonna take their eyes. And I say, yeah, but remember, it's for the sake of science. And they live a happy life. That's what we have to make sure, that they live a happy life. And then we need to do the work that we need to do. But now at the University of Texas, San Antonio, I have that opportunity, like I said, to build my lab, to train students. So here I'm training my students, right? There's a new student, so I lend her my code. Because I said, okay, well, I'll give you my code so you could, and be able to try the different things. But I must say that it's been a lot of hard work, because the last lab course that I had was in high school. So you might think that high school courses that you're taking are not relevant. They will be very relevant. Believe me, because you're going to get to a point in your life that you're going to want to go into a certain direction. And guess what? That course that you had like 10 years ago, or more than that for me, is going to become very relevant. Like I tell my kids now, sometimes I ask them for their notes, if I could borrow their notes, to review some of my chemistry and my biology. And you might think it's silly, but it's true. And then it's condensed in a better way. And I also had while I was in, at ASU, at UTSA, I sit in two worlds. I'm a mestiza, right? A blend of two different fields. Well, when I went to Paris as a Fulbright, it was the same thing. You know, I had to dive into experimental work. I had to be in a country that was foreign, in a country where Americans are not very welcome, right? Many times I was by myself in the lab trying to learn things when I didn't speak the language, right? I remember sometimes walking into the elevator and people walking out, right? And it took me a little while to realize, oh, Americans are not like us well. So then I was a proud Mexican, a Mexican. But I'm kidding about that. I would still say I'm a Mexican American, and I identify very much as an American. But I was transformed. And I was transformed, and I was also willing to transform others, right? And I remember when I was leaving, the lab tech said, Tati, you know, it's been so hard, and I want to apologize for being so mean to you, yet you have always been very nice to us. And she said, why? And I go, because we're Americans. In America, we treat people that come and visit us as our guests, you know, and we open our hearts to them. So I hope that one day you come to my lab, so you could learn, so you could see how in America we would treat people that is differently than the way I've been treated, right? But I did meet some wonderful people too in Paris that helped me. And that's the thing, you always, if you're resilient and you're able to get up and you're able to keep on trying and look for solutions and look for opportunities, you're gonna find those people that will help you, right? But like I said, it was a foreign place, and it was not just a foreign place academically, it was also a foreign place personally, you know. For my kids, I remember the first day that we went to drop them off at school, they're terrified. They're going to a school not knowing the language, not knowing the city, right? And that's a picture I took of them, and I told them to smile, and that's the best they could do, right? I said, look happy. You know, we're gonna send it to grandma. And then, but I remember even getting there and living there with boxes and boxes of suitcases, right? Because we were going to be there for a whole year. And it was really a wonderful experience, and I could answer any questions about that. We grew tremendously. But to put all this into context, let me tell you a little bit about myself, right? Let me take a step back. So I was born in Guadalajara, Jalisco, Mexico. I was the fourth child, and my father died when I was 3 months old, leaving my mom that had an elementary level education with 4 kids all under the age of 5, having to have dual jobs, right, working very hard, and being in a society that even though she was a widow, she was not accepted. So thankfully, she was able to find a person that cared for her, that offered her marriage in the United States. So we moved to the United States. They met by writing to each other over regular mail. And here I was again in a place for the first time in my life, in a foreign place, right? In a place that I felt like they didn't accept me. And I thought that was going to be the only time that I was going to be a foreigner in a space that I was going to be living at. And it was not the only time. There's been many times when I went to college. Every single time it has repeated. It has been a repeating thing. And I grew up in East Los Angeles, but when we first got here, we lived in South Central. Both places have a lot of similarities, a lot of gangs, a lot of violence. A lot of my high school friends are no longer with us because they're either dead or in prison. And that happened very quickly, right? Before I even finished high school sometimes. And so I was shaped by my environment, by the social culture factors that were there, right? Poverty, hardship, and stereotypes made my aspiration low. At that point in high school, when I first started high school, my dream was to be a cashier. I said, man, that's gonna be the pinnacle of what I could achieve. Because my mom was cleaning houses. We were selling illegal food in the park, right? And working multiple jobs. So I thought to myself, yeah, I'm gonna be a cashier, you know? That's gonna be the best thing that I could do. And like I said, because every sign around me said I wasn't gonna make it, I would be lucky if I graduate from high school and if I have not already had a criminal record, or if I was not pregnant and expecting a kid, right? Or dead. So for me, that was gonna be the best. Well, I was lucky that I found a catalyst that really changed my whole perspective and that allowed me to believe in myself, even when I didn't, you know, when no one did actually.
Is it right? Yeah. You see? It's simple.
You able to see
How you do that?
It's a top secret. It is a top secret. You see, it's easy, it's simple. Anybody could do it. The only thing you need in this class is ganas.
And ganas is the desire to achieve something. And I firmly believe that's all you need in life. You need the ganas. And then to put in the work, right? But that's the first step. And that's Jaime Escalante, the late Jaime Escalante, best known as Kimo. Kimo Sabe, the one who knows it all. He was my high school teacher, my calculus teacher. Right.
Is it right? Yeah.
Sorry. And with humor, discipline, high expectations, and ganas, he allowed us to see that we could achieve anything we set our goals to. In fact, he would bring students that were his students to come and speak to us. And they would tell us not just about the careers they had, but the life they have now, right? And I remember one time after one speaker came, he talked about working in Rand Corporation or Raytheon, I don't remember, but I do remember he went to MIT, to the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, right? And right after he left, I said, Kimo, I want to go to that school. What school? MIT or TT. He said, no, Flaca, it's MIT. And if you stick with me, I am going to take you to MIT. So, and I remember those words, right? Because then in college, I remind him that I was not in MIT. Right? But he also reminded me that he was not a perfect science. He just overshot by a few miles, right? And but the funny thing is, he did took me to MIT, and I'll tell you about it in a few minutes. He took me 20 years later, but not as a student, as an actual visiting professor, right? And that was an incredible step in my life, to be able to know the day before that I was about to walk into that big institution that I had walked many times before, because I went to Wellesley College, which is a few miles, well, like 45 miles down the road. But I had been there before at MIT, visiting friends that I had, but not as someone who was in the classroom. And I remember the night before I had to go, I remember the day I had to go. I'm about to leave, right? And my husband says, Tati, and I turn around, and he knew I was crying. And he said, Kimo took you to MIT. And I started to cry, and I said, he took me to MIT. And he goes, and you be proud, because he'll be proud of you. So I walked to class. I came in early like I always do. I always like to, now it doesn't work anymore. They know that there's an old lady sitting in the back, so students know that I'm not the student. But when I was younger, I could sit in the back, and the students will not realize that I was a student, that I was the teacher, right? So you hear all of them making comments about who's this professor, she's visiting, right? And I'm sitting in the back. And then once I realized that everyone is there, I get up and I said, it feels so good to sit in that chair. I waited 20 years to be sitting in this chair. But you know what? And I walk up to the front of the room, said, it feels better to be in front of the classroom. And then I said, and I introduced myself, and I said, you have an incredible opportunity. Because there were many people like me, they wanted to take your place or wanted to be in your place. We didn't get that chance. So what does that mean? That you get this great education, but you also have a huge responsibility, a huge social responsibility to do better than what I would have done. And but it was very great. It was a great experience to teach students. But I just wanted to say that that's what he did, that he always instilled in us that kind of desire to succeed. And let me move forward.
The way to success.
Success means victory. Does not come easily. If you believe in yourself, you're gonna do it. Believing in yourself means you're building confidence. Believing in yourself is a giant step to success. You're gonna do it.
And believing in yourself is the most important thing. Even when you're afraid. Many times I've been afraid to try things all my life. But I believe I have something to contribute. And that's what you need to be able to do. So Kimo cultivated in me not just an interest in mathematics, but the most important thing, he allowed me to believe in myself, that I had the potential. Not that I was there, but I had the potential. And that was very important, because then I went to Wellesley College, my undergrad institution, right? Which is a private institution where there's a lot of money, a lot of wealth, and a huge lack of diversity. However, that lack of diversity was an opportunity for me to grow and to be in spaces where I'm the only one. And to not be so intimidated that I would freeze and not succeed, but actually to take it as a challenge and succeed, you know? And that didn't mean I was accepted. No, I was constantly reminded that I was a quota, that I was there to fulfill quota. Even my physics teacher said that. Sometimes students didn't want to work with me because I spoke with an accent, right? And I was told that I didn't belong, right? But you know what? And there was times when I wanted to leave. There was many times when I remember I would wait to take a shower because I had a roommate, so I could cry in there, you know, because I wanted to go back home. And I would call Kimo, right? And he would start really hard always. He would tell me, you have an opportunity that others don't have. You have no right to walk away. So, you know, clean your tears. Make that sadness and that anger that you have because people are telling you that you are this thing that you're not, to show them what you are, to show them that you have the potential. Yes, you have learning gaps. You know, unfortunately, when you sometimes go to inner city schools, there's not the books or the resources to give you access to everything. But once they give you the access and they open the door, you're gonna walk through there and you're gonna do well. And then he will start to joke around. But I remember, I would call him. I would never call my mom. Because my mom would right away tell me, Mija, come, we'll go pick you up in LAX. We'll be ready to bring you home. Right. Seriously. In fact, when I would go home, my dad said, There were so many people that went to East Los Angeles Community College. Why do you have to go all the way to Massachusetts? Why? Do you want to go there to party? Do you want to go there so you could see guys? And he didn't realize I was working so hard. I had 4 jobs because I would send money home. Because being also wealthy, I realized how poor we were. We were really poor. With my 4 jobs, I was making way more money and working part-time than my dad and my mom together. So I would I helped them send money home, but also I was studying a lot because there was gaps in my knowledge, right? And I'm getting the sign that it's 5 minutes, so I'm going to try to move very quickly. But in this environment, I felt very isolated. There was not much a sense of community, right? I was many times alone, or the only one. I would go and participate in summer programs, and then I would realize, oh, I'm the only woman here. But being always alone helped me be in places where I'm different, and I'm okay. I'm okay. I don't let that stop me. And I also was pushed out of my comfort zone, and that's important because you don't know what you could achieve unless you push yourself to a place where you are really outside of your element. And with all of that, I made a conscious choice to really educate myself in a rigorous way, to become a mathematician, an applied mathematician. I wanted to start my summer program, and someone said, well, you have to go get your PhD so you could apply for grants because you need a PhD to get grants so that you could support your summer program. And you know what? That was the motivation to go get my PhD, because I wanted to go change the world, right? Initially, I wanted to go to Wall Street because I was a double major in economics and mathematics. And many of my teammates were going to Wall Street and making a lot of money. And I said, gee, for the first time, I want to stop being poor. Well, I decided to go get my math PhD. I'm not poor, it's still good, but it takes a little longer to get there. And then I joined the next generations of PhDs. I ended up going to Cornell University, right? But even at Cornell University, many times I was myself, right? In fact, the people that I connected the most with are people that were 3 years after me, or 2 years, like Johnny Guzman, who you heard him speak, right? It was not my class, because my class I was by myself. The pressures of the family, there was a lot of pressures of why my brother would even say, how come you don't become a real woman and have a kid and have a family when I would go and visit, right? So at some point I decided, well, very early on, okay, the pressure will start if I have a kid, right? Big mistake, because then it got more difficult, right? And my poor son had to go through a lot. Sometimes I was studying and he would be sleeping underneath the desk, right? When he would come and visit. And then I had to leave him the last year to finish my PhD with my mom and his dad, who had already graduated in Los Angeles. And I would come and see him once a month. And you don't know how hard it was to fly 5 to 6 hours, right? And be crying all the time because I left my 10-month-old baby, right? But I would not regret that decision because we are where we are as a family because of that. And I don't have to be afraid of being poor. They have had a life that I would have never had. So I always say we got our PhD, Alan and I. And I have a lot of success, but I'm still, a stranger in academia. I got in a lot of wars. I've gotten to go to become an NSF program officer. And not just a program officer, but actually co-lead a program, which means you're in charge of the entire program. And you get to learn a lot of behind the scenes of this great institution of the National Science Foundation that I wouldn't have had I been just a regular program officer. So that was a big challenge. And I remember saying, why? Why did they pick me to do this? But actually it was great. But also being grateful that I've been recognized with many, many awards for my work. They haven't come at the time that I had expected them, but they've been there. And I'm very thankful. I'm very thankful that my community has recognized what I've been doing. Because a lot of my drive is not for me, it's for them, right? It's to be able to open doors and do things for them. And yes, I made mistakes, but I also accomplished a lot. And I own everything of it. And my journey is my journey, it's no one else's journey. And that's something that took a while for me. I would always say, oh, I'm lucky. And later on I say, oh God, why are you putting me here? God, give me a sign if this going to get a wet lab is the way to go. And guess what? The sign kept on going in that direction, even though it was very, very hard for me, right? And I want you to do that because there's going to be so many things in your life where you're not going to feel accepted, where you think if you change, they're going to accept me. But then you're not being true to yourself. So you have to be who you are. No one can define your path, only you. There's going to be times when a professor or a teacher is going to tell you you're not good enough, or this field is not for you. But if you want it, you work hard at it, and you show them that it's for you. That you might not be the top student, but you'll be good and you'll contribute. So yeah, there's many times that I feel like I'm falling off a cliff, including now, you know. But I know that everything I did and have done, my whole life journey got me ready to be where I am, right? And it really showed me the way of being strong, even at times when there's a lot of adversity. And it also gave me great mentors, right, to try to emulate. And I have a lot of them, not just chemo, but a lot of them that have come at a very critical time in my life. So I'm, like I said, one of the things that I took 50 years to realize, I'm very happy with who I am. I'm not perfect. No, by no means. I make a lot of mistakes. I'm a dreamer, you know. One time I tell my kids that once I finish with the lab, I think I'm going to become a sociologist or a writer, right? Because that's something I also like to do. But I am who I am. You know, I'm a mix, and I'm very proud of my culture. I'm Mexican American, and I'm American. I would give my life for this country, but I would also give my life for my culture, which is a mix, you know. So, and I want you to remember that, you know. And I hope that you realize I had nothing. There were many times when we didn't have food to eat, right? I grew up in East Los Angeles. I know what poverty looks like. But I know what a lavish life looked like. If you come to my house, if you see the car I drive, I mean, look at the way I dress. I know I look a little old, but I love to look good. I'm a Latina. And I'm a product of every single place where I've been, you know, including Wellesley College. And with this, I want to thank you. I want to thank the organizers for sharing a little bit about my life. It was, like I said, I didn't know what I wanted to say, because I wanted to say so many things. And I'm very happy to talk to you at any point if you want to learn more about me or anything. You know, I love to talk and learn about your journey as well. Thank you.